conduce images, that can monitor and alter brain waves at a distance, that can alter behavior at a distance, that can induce images into the brain at a distance, that can target individual organs at a distance, and disrupt calcium ions binding onto individual cell surfaces at a distance, creating pain and other effects anywhere in the body, and technologies that have moved beyond the realm of electromagnetics into the realm of hyperspace and scalars, and into the quantum realm. We have demonstrated the ability of electric and magnetic fields to alter DNA and control bioelectric and biochemical processes in living systems. In other words, the technology to effect mind control exists without question. The question of whether it's being used is the cogent one. Reports from the open literature. One from NASA. No one there had a clue who this guy was that put it together, or this so-called society that was sponsoring it. I later found out that he was from East Germany, and it was a fishing expedition just to see, who was doing what. So there was kind of a one-upsmanship. Our government was oblivious, and the Eastern Bloc got the goodies. Today we know there are technologies that can induce sound into the brain at a distance, that can monitor and alter brain waves at a distance, that can alter behavior at a distance, that can induce images into the brain at a distance, that can target individual organs at a distance, and disrupt calcium ions binding onto individual cell surfaces at a distance, creating pain and other effects anywhere in the body, and technologies that have moved beyond the realm of electromagnetics into the realm of hyperspace and scalars, and into the quantum realm. We have demonstrated the ability of electric and magnetic fields to alter DNA and control bioelectric and biochemical processes in living systems. In other words, the technology to effect mind control exists without question. The question of whether it's being used is the cogent one. Reports from the open literature. One from NASA that says, the phenomena occurs at average power densities as low as microwatts per square centimeter, with carrier frequencies between 0.4 to 3 gigahertz. By proper choice of pulse characteristics, intelligible speech can be created inside the brain. Do you know what operates also between 0.4 and 3 gigahertz? Your portable phone. Not your cell phone, your portable phone. Smack dab between those two exact frequencies. The 3 gigahertz one hasn't come out yet, but it's been developed. But 0.4 to 3 gigahertz is exactly where your portable phone works. That'll become important in a little while. How about this title? Gordon and Breach Publishing Company, abstract of a publication entitled Experimental Production, quote, or parentheses, False Memories, by right hemispheric stimulation.
That could be you right there. You see that guy walking by? Let's pause. This is Eldon Byrd, a guy I barely even heard of. It's not cool. Not cool. It's obviously, this guy is obviously dangerous. That could be you, or anybody just walking by. I mean, how do you feel about that? You see that? It's color-coded. Everything on you. You got to see the other one. Look at it, spinning around. They're on everything. And they can disrupt the calcium ion from binding onto the cell, and that just causes pain. Moreover, even more, it causes apoptosis, cell death. Okay, this is what they're doing. On a scale you really, I don't think, can imagine. I initiated this recording video that you're seeing here due to, let's just reset that, due to me feeling something that just was not natural. Now I know it's not natural. I always thought it's something funny. The throat. They're attacking the throat. They do it to everybody. They've gotten really comfortable, these maniacs. They've gotten really comfortable. This is why they're so arrogant. Okay, I understand now. Why are these motherfuckers so arrogant? Like, wow, man, they must know something. Well, they've been here for a long time, doing this shit for a long time. That's why they're so arrogant, undetected, unpunished. And apparently this is the script. They developed this script. It's very fine-tuned. It's a narcissist, schizophrenic weasel. It's a weasel. Very smart weasel. And it's like, oh, I love you. When it says I love you, it's attacking you. When it says I'm out of here, it's really not. It's coming deeper in. It's like, it's the script. It associates pain and love, probably meant for kids. This is probably what they do to kids at a very young age. I love you, Payday, as they're attacking me. Now, right here, I got my throat. I have myself shielded. I've done things that makes them pretty much impossible for them to read me. You think if they can read minds, motherfucker, they ain't reading yours. Well, you might be right there. I've done some things. I've learned some things. I've fine-tuned some things. I've adjusted some things. And they don't like the fact that whatever I've done. I don't know if they can hear me or not. I doubt it very much. I think they're having a hard time understanding what I'm thinking, my thought processes, or rather the encryption technology they have. Because you see all this shit moving around? Let's have a look. You see all that shit moving? What do you think? That's not there to tingle your testicles. That's not there to wash the windows. That's there to read your fucking mind, all that movement. You see how fast that's moving? That's there for other purposes. You gotta be silly. That's not there to help me watch Netflix. That's not there to help me download YouTube videos about government mind control by ex-generals, colonels, and medical staff who has been censored all over the place. That shit moving around there is not there for any other purpose but to read the population at large. And yours truly is showing you all this. I'm highlighting all this. They don't like that. But yet there's nothing really they can do about it but go on my throat with their electrostatic, their dirty electric, and make me go You see that sound? That's largely generally due to this murk, if not entirely. That's murk at work. That's not natural. That is not a natural fucking thing. They have to do that? Sorry. We have all been inculcated into some unnatural things, to do some unnatural things that just aren't natural, but they're a product of the medical mafia tyranny that is now being imposed. I don't know if we can even stop it. It's now being imposed, like after this CVD thing. Chemical vapor deposition. I don't know what that CVD means. It can mean anything. YouTube. Fuck you, YouTube. You suck. Medical misinformation. I don't know about that. How about let people make their own decisions and maybe stop censoring and playing nanny because you're afraid of information that some of us are going to put out and link others to. You don't like that, do you, YouTube? You're complicit in the mass murder of millions. Slow kill. YouTube, you're right there with Merck and DARPA. Merck and DARPA, look at my throat. See, this is why I've done this on several occasions when they're attacking my throat. Not now, they're not. For some reason, they're not attacking my throat now. I don't know. I always visualize them on times like this when I feel great. They ran away for good, and they're never going to come back. But see, they always come back. They always come back. We're out of here, Payday. We're out of here. No. You're not. You're actually getting closer to me in some way, shape, or form, metaphorically. Look at all this static around me. This is just one view. Let's open up another one. I'm using police software to show these. Look at that. You can see it's a plastic film. There's a film. It's a film, like a shrink wrap. I'm using police software to show these moron losers, because you got to be a moron loser if you're doing this. Really, if you're not smart, you're not well. And you're not winning if you're doing this to another human. See, they mimic nature. They mimic nature, so it makes them feel great. And you know what? That is great. They can mimic nature. Until you start hurting another human being with the nature you mimic, you're cool. You're cool with me. That's fine. When you start hurting your fellow human being, you're not mimicking nature anymore. You're antithetical to nature. You're not doing nature anything, any kind of a service. You're actually smacking nature in the face at that point. You do a very sharp 180-degree turn around and go the other way. And nature doesn't like that. And I have a hypothesis that nature anything repugnant to nature, it self-eradicates. Nature just has that built in. It's baked into nature. You self-eradicate if you're repugnant to nature. And this thing is repugnant to nature, just like GMOs. The Terminator seed, they have to maintain the shit. This, the seed by Monsanto that commits suicide after harvest? That self-eradicates. They have to maintain all this GMO shit. And they do. See this? They have to maintain this. Look at that. They do. They'll probably have you believe this is a dynamo. It's self-perpetuating. No, they have to maintain this hardcore. They have people on me. The AI is trained by humans. It's programmed by humans. If you didn't know, I'm gonna let Eldon Byrd, medical bio engineer for the Navy, and whatever. He's a very, very learned individual who probably went a little too early. He looks young as shit. I think he's not with us anymore, unfortunately. I think they did him a very bad disservice and probably offed him. But let's listen to the rest of what he's saying here as we watch me getting assaulted. My throat is getting dried up. They're using air tap from MIT. Yeah, it sucks water molecules from the air in case you're thirsty, so it can make you give you something to drink. Isn't that ironical? Isn't that ironical? It's called air tap. MIT makes it. It sucks water molecules from the air for drinking water purposes, but it can also dehydrate you. It's sucking water molecules from my throat. That's what it's. See what you're watching there? That's air tap sucking water molecules from my throat, making my throat dry. Yeah. Here's Eldon. You gotta be kidding me here.
Author, Dr. Michael Persinger. April 24th, year 2000. You can find patents galore. There have been some mentioned here today at www.truefacts.org/menu/patents.html, and of course the entire U.S. patent database at www.patents.uspto.gov. I'm only going to just mention a couple patents. The patents, when you look at them, revealed an old set of technologies for the most part. As early as 1974 to 1976, that described techniques and devices reduced to practice for remotely inducing altered states of consciousness, putting voices in a person's head, monitoring their brain waves, and altering their brain waves. It's been possible to send information directly into a person's brain via radio waves since before 1989. In 1985, an ears, eyes, and throat doctor in San Francisco told me directly that 10 years before that, he had put audio into a person's head via radio waves, and then in 1985, he could do it in such a way that the person thought the information was an original thought in their mind. It required implanting a radio receiver directly on the oral nerve of the person. I said, you're telling me that there may be CIA operatives out there, they're in direct communication with headquarters via radio waves, and that they're being told what to do and communicating back and forth directly with these implants. He says, no, I didn't say that. I said, well, you just told me that you developed the technology to do that. He says, no, I don't have anything. I'm not working for the CIA. I never was. I said, that's odd. My note here says that contact this doctor in San Francisco, that he's developed this technology for us, and it came from a CIA analyst. No, I've never done anything with the CIA. Patent number 5213562.
Did you hear that? Hold on, let's rewind that a little bit. Did you hear what he just said?
By proper choice of pulse characteristics, intelligible speech.
He meant an ear. I never heard of an eyes, ears, and throat. I'm sure he don't mean ear, nose, and throat. There, back then must have been a thing. Who told him that he can make someone hear a voice that sounds like their own? He's done it. Isn't that something? Let's hear that again. This is Eldon Byrd. I wish I would have heard more of him. I heard his name before. I've seen his face. But why don't I know what he's saying? I should be more familiar with his talks here.
Gordon & Breach Publishing Company, abstract of a publication entitled Experimental Production, quote, or parentheses, False Memories,
Experimental Productions, False Memories.
By right hemispheric stimulation from complex, weak magnetic fields. Not images, memories. Author, Dr. Michael Persinger.
Michael Persinger.
April 24th, year 2000.
Well, look, they're on my throat. I mean, I really don't like the attacking of the throat or the heart. You know, they can target any organ from remotely just by disrupting calcium ion bonding to the cell. Causes pain, and it also causes apoptosis, cell death. And they can do that remotely. Clearly, I just showed you. He just said it.
Revealed an old set of technologies for the most part. As early as 1974 to 1976, that described techniques and devices reduced to practice for remotely inducing altered states of consciousness.
1974-76, remotely inducing states of altered consciousness.
Person's head, monitoring their brain waves and altering their brain waves.
Here we go.
It's been possible to send information directly into a person's brain via radio waves since before 1989. In 1985, an ears, eyes, and throat doctor in San Francisco told me directly that 10 years before that, he had put audio into a person's head via radio waves, and then in 1985, he could do it in such a way that the person thought the information was an original thought in their mind. It required implanting a radio receiver directly on the oral nerve of the person. I said, you're telling me that there may be CIA operatives out there, they're in direct communication with headquarters via radio waves, and that they're being told what to do and communicating back and forth directly with these implants. He says, no, I didn't say that. I said, well, you just told me that you developed the technology to do that. He says, no, I don't have anything. I'm not working for the CIA. I never was. I said, that's odd. My note here says that contact this doctor in San Francisco, that he's developed this technology for us, and it came from a CIA analyst. No, I've never done anything with the CIA. Patent number 5213562 is the Monroe patent on his hemisync system. What's not generally known is that the patent includes altering another person's brain waves by imposing someone else's brain waves on them. Wow. A later improvement to Monroe's technique yielded patent number 5356358. In this patent, Monroe discusses how to put subliminal signals in background noise to alter brain states. Multiple sources are used, and even a hypnagogic or sleep state was shown to be inducible via audio inputs. Nanotechnology was mentioned. It was just in the news last week that the same Japanese scientist who constructed a fully functional coil spring that fits inside a living cell has now made this little teeny plastic bull with horns and nostrils that conducts electricity that fits inside a living cell. If we can do that, what else can we do? It was just announced 3 weeks ago that they have perfected a room temperature Josephson junction, an artificially constructed device that only lets one electron through it at a time. Squids don't have to be made now with being dunked in liquid helium. We can do it at room temperature. When that was announced, theoretical physicist friend of mine made a quick calculation. He says, my gosh, now we can make a brain the size of a brain. Same number of neuronal connections, acts just like a human brain. Of course, it'll make mistakes. In 1980 and 1981, I was tasked by the U.S. Marine Corps to develop a non-lethal weapon using electromagnetic means. They were going to give this project to General Electric, but when I heard about it, I said, why do you want to do that? You know, I can do that. And they said, why can you do that? And I said, I'm the only medical engineer the Navy's got, and you know, I've been looking into this kind of stuff. I think that's doable, and you don't have to give it outside. We can do it in-house. Well, I chose to concentrate on ELF nonlinear magnetics for several reasons. That was the easiest thing to do, for one thing. When the project was terminated by the sponsor, it had been demonstrated that such signals could alter the behavior of rats, cause histamine to dump into brain tissue, and we could entrain human brain waves at a distance. I'm of such a conviction that I would not allow that part of the project to be demonstrated, to be used on anybody else but myself. I was the guinea pig for the brainwave entrainment part of that. You don't feel anything, just that for a while, your brainwaves are different.
So it worked?
Oh, it worked. And immediately after I showed that we could do these things, they stopped the project and made it go dark, apparently. Under contract to me was Drs. Elizabeth Rauscher, Dr. Ross Adey, Dr. Evan Harris Walker, and Michael Persinger. And in addition to what I just said, at the theoretical level, we showed that in imaginary time and space, in hyperspace, electromagnetics results in solitons, and that only quantum events can occur in small neurons in your brain. And that phase conjugate fields, which create scalars, can cause profound effects in living systems. At the time, I thought that the shutdown of the project was just stupid on the part of the government, but I enlisted the help of Senator Claiborne Pell, who, as a senator, could go and dig into classified projects and find out that, indeed, well, first he told me there was nothing there, and then a year later he called me into his Senate office building. He said, can't give you the details, but your project went dark. So I have pretty good authority that it really did go dark. One central part of the project was the evaluation by Ross Adey of the Light of 4. The CIA had obtained the device through Canada, along with a photo showing a whole room full of people asleep in an audience with the Light of 4 machine sitting on the podium. It was touted and patented in the US as a medical device that emitted extremely low frequency magnetic fields, acoustic signals in the form of clicks, heat, and electric fields. It was constructed in the 1950s. While it was in Dr. Adey's lab at the VA hospital in Riverside, putting cats and rabbits into stupors, a tradesman passed by the lab, confronted Ross, asked him where he got that brainwashing machine. Ross explained it was a medical device from the USSR. The tradesman said that he and his buddies had been brainwashed by an identical device during the Korean War in a POW camp. While they were under the influence of the device, questions and answers were read to them. When the Red Cross arrived to check on them, they asked questions, and the prisoners blurted out answers to the questions and wondered where the answers came from. If a technology was developed in the 1950s that worked to put people asleep at a distance and had a hypnagogic effect on them, it is reasonable to assume that it was refined and the devices made smaller. Psychodiagnosis and psychocorrection. I found it interesting that the only project I was ever involved in that had to do with anything classified was remote viewing, and yet once I got in, started listening to the people in the TI area, I started noticing that I was also peripherally associated with a whole bunch of other stuff that I never put together as pieces of a puzzle before. 10 years ago or so, I was asked to be the chief engineer for a project that was co-sponsored by the Human Potential Foundation in Northern Virginia and Chris and Janet Morris. Chris and Janet Morris brought 2 Soviet scientists to Washington, D.C., and then to the medical school at the University of Kansas to demonstrate a technique they called psychodiagnosis and psychocorrection. Although it involved the use of electrodes attached to the scalp, technologies have been developed to allow remote monitoring and intervention to occur. Basically, Dr. Igor Smirnov and his engineer had developed a very sophisticated computer program. It took a 486 computer several hours to analyze the data they collected in 20 minutes, to look at brainwave responses to emotionally charged words. The computer generated a 3-dimensional plot that related several variables, resulting in a diagnosis of what was the person's root cause of a problem. For example, if a man treated women badly, the cause might be hatred of his mother. The subject's brainwave response to words such as mother, love, hate, women, and so forth would be very telling. He was attached to a 32-channel EEG machine, and as they watched a TV display of what appeared to be random serial words flashing on the screen. Around the screen was a circle of LED lights flashing at an ELF rate. When I asked what they were for, the answer was, quote, to focus the attention to the screen. Sure, it was just like when I asked Dr. Smirnov, who claimed not to speak English, till I asked him a point-blank question in English, what the 3 orthogonal canisters were above the subject's head in a photo he passed around at the medical school of Kansas. He said, smiling, "You come to Russia, we show you." Once diagnosed, an affirmation was constructed to change behavior. The affirmations were not direct. For example, if it was determined that a problem that was driving a person's behavior had to do with their hating their mother, the affirmation would be in the form of, "It's okay to hate your mother," not, "Don't hate your mother." This would reduce the stress associated with hating one's mother. The affirmation was converted into a sound file in the computer, turned upside down, 180 degrees phase shift and amplitude, and reversed. It was then embedded in white noise and played to the subject as a subliminal. The 180-degree phase shift and reversal made the affirmation more easily assimilated by the subconscious. Change occurs at the subconscious level before it occurs at the conscious level. Of equal interest was a computer game that was demonstrated where the subject would try to guess a random number the computer would select. A score was kept during 100 trials. Guessing would indicate a 1 in 10 chance of guessing the right number. However, some volunteers scored 30 out of 100. Then the computer would look at the guess compared with the next machine selection, and in some subjects they scored much higher when their guesses were compared with the second number the computer randomly chose, proving the existence of precognition. The Russians said the KBG was interested in their technology, but they hadn't given it to them. At the University of Kansas, the staff was interested if the technique had been used to treat alcoholics. The response was, "Alcoholism is not a disease. People drink for many reasons. When we discover the underlying cause of drinking, we can make excessive drinkers stop." Maze. Anybody read the book Maze by Larry Collins? Came out about 1984. The book Maze by Larry Collins. You know who Larry Collins is? The author? Anybody ever read O Jerusalem? Is Paris Burning? They made movies of these. You know, this is the Larry Collins. He contacted me and hired me to be the technical consultant for his book. I was still working for the government, so I asked him to please don't mention my name in the book, and he complied. And we collaborated on the approach to technology, which the book wove several complex plots together. One of them, the more interesting to you here, is where the head of the KGB had a brain tumor. A lot of EEG records were obtained and analyzed to determine his brainwave patterns for various states of mind, like rage, laughing, focusing attention, and so forth. The idea was to influence the President of the United States by impressing brainwaves into his head during an important decision to sway the decision in the KGB's favor. We settled on the technique of creating a scalar signal by phase conjugating two magnetic fields at right angles to each other. And you heard Brother Rhodes talk about that. One generator was placed in a van about a half a mile from the White House, and the other in an apartment about half a mile away. The field strengths necessary to create the desired effects were well within the realm of what had already been demonstrated, but the critics panned the novel, saying it was way too far out. I later suggested to Larry that a more practical way of doing the same thing would be to use the telephone. That was when telephones still had a magnetic pickup in the earpiece, and we could modulate that magnetic field and cause an effect. That book was published, nearly 20 years ago. John Mack, at the Prophets Conference in New York in June of 2001 this year, stated that many UFO abductees, contactees, claimed to also be victims of mind control. Caroline McLeod constructed a study which showed that character structure and psychopathology have little to do with telling us about the nature and meaning of an alien encounter. And I would submit the same thing holds true for TIs. A TI from Michigan, whose tape you'll hear excerpts from later, was psychologically evaluated after he went to the police and said, "Somebody is harassing me electronically," and he played tapes for him, and they said, "Well, son, you need to go get psychologically evaluated. You're nuts." He took a written psychological test, passed it fine. No pathology was noted. The psychologist who interviewed him afterwards wrote a report and said, with the exception of this guy hearing voices in his head, he's perfectly normal. Actually, McLeod's study indicated that most UFO abductees were suffering from some sort of post-traumatic shock. Well, darn, if I'd been abducted by aliens, I'd be in shock too. And the situation arises, which is valid for TIs also, as to how poorly understood these people are and badly served by a psychology that's based on pathology and or psychodynamics. If TIs are to be helped, methods of understanding must be developed that can combine human experience with empirical study and relate them to communication at a subjective level. Also, the mental health field needs to transform from its position on pathology to an alternative that includes self-realization. At some point, the TI is going to say something to the effect, I don't know why I'm being a target, but regardless of what my friends and the culture says or thinks, these experiences are happening to me. They do not need external verification. When the TIs can reach this point, it helps them become grounded. They can feel that they know themselves well enough to say, what I know about myself tells me I'm having this experience, and that's good enough. However, the current worldview is based on scientific materialism, that reality can only be determined by the scientific method, which is hypothesis, controlled experiment, measurement, replications. Unless something can be proven to exist by this method, it is dismissed out of hand or relegated to the purgatory of the subjective. Richard Sauter was mentioned. He's written several books on secret installations and various things, including Kundalini experiences. He visited some underground government facilities that he discovered in the open literature. How these places became known in the first place.
Link in the description. This is
startled me. One was very close to where I used to
harrowing and daunting. No, link in the description. Stay tuned for more. Any of the three of you who are paying attention, I'm really shadow banned like a motherfucker. Share, share, share. If you want to mirror this, feel free. You can even sell it, or if you can make money, I don't care. Just please share.